This is Doug DeMuro, and today I'm here with my friend Kennan. Kennan is one of my best friends, and he decided to stop by. We could record some videos.
On a rainy day in San Diego. Sounds lovely.
This is a totally new day, totally new video. We did not simply change shirts and record several of these back to back.
Of course not.
No, we are professionals.
You fellas have nothing to worry about. I'm a professional.
But today we're going to talk about a controversial topic, which is the McLaren F1 overrated? I have this theory that maybe the McLaren F1 could be a little bit overrated. I know this is sacrilege. Everybody's already angry. But maybe it could be true. So today we're going to talk this through. So let's get started.
Okay.
Before I get started, be sure to check out Cars and Bids, which is my enthusiast car auction website for cool cars from the modern era with free listings. You can list your cool car for free and auction it on Cars and Bids. And you should, because we've had some great sales lately, like this McLaren 720S, which sold for $260,000, this fantastic Ferrari F430, which brought just over $100,000, and this wonderful Lamborghini Gallardo Spider, which sold for just under $115,000. If you're looking to buy or sell a cool enthusiast car from the modern era, the 1980s and up, Cars and Bids is the place to do it, with daily auctions, great selection, and free listings. Check it out at carsandbids.com. Okay, the McLaren F1.
McLaren F1.
The greatest thing of all time. The greatest thing ever made. People think that.
Including me.
Including Kennan. Kennan thinks that is one of these McLaren F1 is the greatest thing ever.
Worship at the altar of the F1.
Worships the McLaren F1. But I have started to wonder if maybe, given that it costs $25 million, damn! If maybe it's just like a little overrated. Because I can't say it's a lot overrated because people freak. And Kennan will get mad at me and he'll kill me.
Yeah, absolutely.
But first I want to hear from you why you believe, he'll be speaking for the general car enthusiast, why people believe it's the greatest car ever made.
Absolutely. So the traditional arguments about this car are, as you know, they're just these normal things you think of when you think of the F1. It was the fastest car in the world at the time, 240 miles an hour, which is amazing. It was a road car designed by a racing team. A racing team that was genuinely winning world championships, and not that long before that had, Senna was in the car and all these iconic things. McLaren at one of their many peaks was now going to make a road car. And it was a blank sheet of paper. They wanted to do anything they want. That was the McLaren F1. It was one person's vision. It was Gordon Murray's vision. Of what the ultimate car could be. Focus. It was very focused on being the best road car.
So from an engineering perspective.
Yes, and I am a huge fan of engineering. So from an engineering perspective, use all these crazy materials and techniques, and it was the greatest.
Did it ever strike you as unusual that this car, with the engineering focus, used bus taillights?
Yes.
Like I've always been told by everybody, including people like you, everything was designed by Gordon Murray to be the exact down to an ounce lightest perfect thing for balance, and then they put the taillights from a bus on the car.
Wasn't it said that there's no great piece of art that doesn't have some flaw?
But that's the point though. That's what you people say. You're like, it's the balance, the perfection. I was told they used a certain filament in the CD player to save an ounce.
Well, look, I will confess that it is not a perfect car, as there is no such thing. A really good example is, and this is talked about, there's a bracket on a bracket in the engine bay that when at speed, evidently the engine bay lifts a little bit due to the aerodynamics, and the engine light, the light for the engine bay would come on. And so they had to move the position, but that meant putting a bracket on top of a bracket, which meant that now it's in this fastidiously designed car.
A little heavier.
It was a little heavier, and it was inefficient. There are some flaws with this car, I admit.
Including bus taillights.
Including bus taillights, including BMW turn signals and BMW window switches, and yes, there are things that
But can we therefore acknowledge that when everyone talks about the incredible purpose-built perfection of this car, then they threw bus taillights on it. At the end of the day, it's pretty purpose-built.
It's very purpose-built, but even so, even in this world of purpose-built, I think they spent so much money developing other parts of the car that truly, to develop that stuff in-house, just wasn't gonna happen.
Did they ever consider, instead of spending all that money developing the rest of the car, maybe thinking of doing some different taillights?
Well, maybe they did. Maybe they focused on stuff that matters. You ever consider that? taillights weren't the biggest concern.
Let's talk about it. So what mattered? It was the fastest car in the world.
So it achieved that through a lot of different things, right? So it was low curb weight was really important on that car. So the fastidious design and why that was so focused was because there was so much effort spent into weighing every little thing, you know, making sure that like even the tool set was made out of titanium to be lighter.
Right, and people say the tools were titanium to save a quarter of an ounce, and then the bus taillights. But fine. Fastest car in the world.
Those were also chosen because they were very light. Like, that was the focus.
Oh, they chose the latest bus taillights
they would
find.
They
went to the bus taillight company.
Hey man, they were light. They were light.
Everybody said, hey, what do you got?
They were light. Same thing with the Lotus Lanterns.
They said, well, we put these on the T740. That's a mid-size bus throughout Rome and central Italy. What do you think of that?
I wonder if the person who picked him just didn't tell Gordon about this, and here we are discussing it. Okay, great question.
So the fastest car in the world thing, it was an engineering marvel.
It's an engineering marvel. And also, like, being the fastest car in the world, they then took that and went racing with it. It took some convincing, evidently, for Gordon Murray to be like, yes, let's do it. But when they did it, it won Le Mans. Now, I will admit, it was rainy, and like a lot of luck played in this car.
You know, the Le Mans winning thing is an interesting one because everyone talks about one of the special things about the McLaren F1 is that it won Le Mans. However, I have written down, do you know what car won Le Mans in 1990?
No, admittedly, I don't.
The Jaguar XJR 15 won Le Mans in 1990. Does anybody care about the Jaguar XJR 15?
There are some. I happen to also love the XJR 15. But the thing about that car is that, like, yes, it did that too. And then they made a road-going version of it, which you have driven. But that car is such a difficult car to drive. It requires so many sacrifices to drive, and it is genuinely a race car with some license plates on it. The F1 was specifically designed to be a road car, and then it just happened to be so good they went racing and it won Le Mans. Like, it was the other way around. It wasn't, you know. Okay,
but regardless. So it won Le Mans, just like the XJR 15.
Yes, sure. And some other cars, yes.
You're right. There was a balance there that was special, that it was a roadable car. I mean, I've been in a McLaren F1. I've driven an XJR 15. Yes, the XJR 15 feels more like a race car. However, it also costs like $1 million. Whereas a McLaren F1 is $25 million. Is that justifiable?
Well, I admit it's a tad gauche, but I have to say the thing with the values of this car, and a lot of cars are, and we could get into that about 250 GTO and a lot of other cars in this realm of, you know, $70 million. And you're right, it's a multiple of the other cars. But the thing is, like, it's worth what someone's willing to pay for it. And the market has dictated that.
No, I agree with that. So I agree you're right about that. There's no question. Like, regardless of whether, and by the way, I don't even necessarily entirely believe my argument here, but I do wonder if it's a little overhyped. But you're right. If the market has decided it's worth that, then it's worth that.
It's worth that.
Then it's not overhyped by definition.
Yes. Now, we could get into another debate of should any object or car be worth that kind of money.
I do wonder on that subject, like, these cars are so valuable now.
Well, kind of transcends being a car, doesn't it?
It kind of loses the carness of it. And like the people who buy them, are they buying it for the purpose? I mean, I don't want to be one of those people like, you don't even need a pickup truck, so I buy one. But like, are the people who are spending $30 million, are they even buying it to be a car? Do they plan to use it? Or is it just like my neighbor's got an F50, but check out what I got?
Well, so of course there are collectors who buy this car. I mean, there are only, there are 64 of them. So they're not that many. So like to have one is like difficult. You have, like, they don't come up for sale very often, stuff like that. There are McLaren F1 owners who annually get together and drive their cars. And road-going ones, racing ones, they get together and drive them.
You know, I've seen those pictures. How many of those guys do you think that's the only time all year they drive the car?
Oh, I guarantee most of them. But and you're right. Like you're absolutely right. Like, is the value absurd? Yeah, it is. But also, like, you know, at its time, you have to think of it, in my opinion, like more like a piece of automotive history. You're owning, like, was it really a piece of automotive history? Like, it won Le Mans, but again, so did the XJR 15. You know, Toyota won Le Mans last year with a hybrid. I ain't gonna buy a Prius. Well, so it's
a bad argument.
Yeah, that's different echelons
you
there.
You get my point, though. Like, okay, it won Le Mans. Cool.
Okay. Yeah.
That is special. XJR 15 did it years earlier, but whatever.
Also a special car.
Also special. But like, the powertrain was, this is another thing that hangs me up a little bit about the McLaren F1. It didn't even have like a bespoke powertrain. They used the BMW V12 that you insist was heavily modified, but it came from the E32 750IL, which you can buy on Craigslist for $2,100.
And those people will tell you it's a McLaren F1 engine, by the way.
That's the first line in the Craigslist ad.
Nothing
McLaren
against the
engine
E32
doesn't
community,
run.
but like, yeah.
Against the E32 community. Is there an E32 community?
Absolutely, of course there is. They'll let you know. But the thing with it is, yeah, I get that it's a modified BMW engine, but I mean, at the time, McLaren had also like approached Honda to build that engine because they had the racing relationship and Honda didn't want to do it. So BMW was kind of one of the only companies they could get to do it.
That's right. So they used a second choice.
That is true. But the thing with that, like...
a non-proprietary engine. I mean, that's kind of part of like what gets me a little bit about the car.
You say it's non-proprietary. It's pretty proprietary. Like, it was based on the S70, but the S70-2 had a lot of special stuff that like made it unique. Particularly like BMW spent a lot of time developing the exhaust system and stuff. They spent allegedly more on development on that than they did on the actual engine because, like you said, it's a reused engine. I agree that like the thing is that engine then also went on to be in the BMW LMR and also went racing at the moment. Like it did stuff, like it was built as a road car engine. It was so good. They were able to tweak a little bit, make it a racing engine.
But I think that harms the car a little bit in my eyes. Like developing a powertrain is kind of important for a car to be like, in my opinion, like the most amazing $30 million car in the world.
Well, sure.
Also,
however, I'll argue with you about Courier GT too.
Here is another, well, the Courier GT isn't a $30 million car. Here's another theory though that I have. If that car hadn't been the world's fastest car, there were a lot of 90s supercars that were like orphaned and they were weird. EB110, XJ220, XJR15, a lot of Diablo variants, Vector W8. Like you could actually name a million of these, right? There's a lot. I wonder if we could look back on that and if it wasn't the fastest car in the world, be like, remember that 3-seater thing with the luggage going on the side?
If it had done 200 miles an hour, would it have been? It's a very good question, and I truly don't know the answer to you. Maybe we'll see with like the T50, because that's effectively the new McLaren F1, same designer and all that stuff. Obviously, that's a key cornerstone component of it, as it did those speeds. I mean, and it held that record for a decade.
Yeah.
But I think that what makes it so special is like it's just like all of these things that go in. It's all of these things. You're right. If
the bus taillights, the BMW powertrain.
BMW window switches, yeah. Hey,
right.
996 Carrera door handles.
Right.
So, but at the end of the day, it's like I think it was just the culmination of all this stuff, like just made it really special. And also, like what really succeeded it was the Veyron, right? And it's a completely different approach. It's turbocharged. This was an NA manual transmission.
Yeah.
Put the driver literally in the center of the experience. And so, like I think that is why it's so special, because there's no, if you want that. For whatever reason, if like you've had everything in Courier GT and F40 and all that, and you come to the realization like that's what you want, which is what they did at the time, they drove all these cars, there's nothing that's like it.
It's an interesting point. So your argument is like it was this incredibly pure thing that was also the fastest car in the world, that was also race winning.
And analog, and just all of these.
Because the EB110 wasn't that.
The other thing to remember is like all those cars did exist at the same time, reviewed at the same time. And even Evo magazine did a really big review on the top analog cars of their time. And the three standouts were F50, Courier GT, and at the top was still the McLaren F1.
Well, now, with the perspective of time. See, that's part of the thing, is that this legend has grown over time to now it's a $20 million car. And you like basically can't say anything negative about the car.
Look, it's got plenty of problems. Like I've been told that it drives like pretty soft. I mean, it's got these huge sidewall tires.
Huge sidewalls.
And it was the 90s. Like these cars, like they just didn't like. I mean, you and I both own cars in the 90s. They got kind of
right. And thus, you must wonder: is it a little overrated?
You know, I think that certain aspects of it certainly are. Like saying that you can't say anything negative about it, well, that's not realistic. It's a car. Like no car is perfect and things like that. So it has flaws, admittedly, of course. The maintenance costs alone are a gigantic flaw with that car. And the fact, like, we live in San Diego. You have one here and you need service. You're sending it to Philadelphia.
Right.
And even then, if they can't do it, it's got to go back to Woking. So it's like you got to do all this stuff. Like, it's kind of a BS car in a lot of ways, but it's still the culmination of all those things. And for people like me who just love analog cars and just like that era,
it was the one.
It was the Zenith. And
yeah, that's fair. That's fair. There were very few other cars really like that, and the fact that it was the fastest car in the world. I guess it's reasonable that it's so insane, but I still think it's maybe more insane than it should be. Everybody freaks out about this car like you can't say anything bad about it, like you've just killed somebody's dog if you do.
Well, please don't kill anybody's dog. I would say bad things about you too. But the thing, I agree with you that like if you approach it rationally, it's like it's $20 million. Like, I mean, think about all the other cars you could have. You could have all of its rivals, basically.
Right.
But at the end of the day, it's like none of them are the McLaren F1.
Yeah. I guess that's reasonable. There we go. The McLaren F1. Is it overrated? Maybe, but probably not. Goodbye.